It's a nice morning of Saturday, May the 6th, 2023, and we will start our mini garden tour seeing what's blooming out here. This is a magnificent Kwanzaa cherry tree, and I have two of these. Actually, they belong to the city, but I certainly have been enjoying them, especially at the time when they bloom right now. And they start end of April and then go on for a few weeks. They finish blooming rather quickly, but while they bloom, they look really spectacular, blooming with these light pink pompon shaped blossoms that are formed in clusters. Kwanzaa cherry trees. And we have wild ducks flying, which I only hear the sound, but I can see it flying. I just can't zoom in. And then we'll go see what's started to bloom in the garden. We're having a light drizzle this morning. It's my favorite kind of weather, where it's nice and not too cold, not too warm, and there's enough moisture in the air to let the plants grow nicely outside. This is the lilac bush that I planted last year, and it's taken on quite nicely. It's recovering from the winter, which can be quite cold here in Oregon, and right now it has plenty of young foliage. And this is a blue pine. The irises are just beginning to bounce back from the winter. No blooms yet, and a lot of cleanup needs to be done. But here we have first blooms as well. These are Spanish bluebells, and they're also called wood hyacinth. And the muscari hyacinth has already stopped blooming. You can see here, these used to be blooms, but now it's time for Spanish bluebells. The azalea bushes have some blossom buds forming up, the signs of frostbite on the older leaves. Hopefully the new leaves will cover them. And then of course buds, flower buds on this particular plant. I will look up the name, I keep forgetting it. Let's go check out the lily of the valley that I had planted last year. Yes, they're peeking out already quite nicely here next to the Japanese maple. And here I planted some paper white bulbs a couple of weeks ago, and look at them, they grow really fast. I know that people mostly grow them inside in big vases, but I decided to try them outside, and they are supposed to be fragrant daffodils with little white clustered blooms. Lithodora is blooming. This is also one of the earliest plants that start blooming right after the frost in my garden. And then more paper whites here. And as I said, I still need to do a lot of cleanup. All of these are going to be removed. Now the apple trees have their blossoms going on. My favorite type of blooms. And here's some more. This is the second tree. I only have two apple trees. They are certainly enjoying the drizzle. Very nice weather for them. Now here we have tomato sticks from last year, which I also will be cleaning up and removing. Strawberries have begun to bloom. Here they are. And here I have this little blue blooms. I will check out the name for this. It's a very common plant, like ground covering plant. And then this is blooming as well. Very pretty lemony, creamy clustered blooms here on this bush. And the berries, it does form the berries after you know, these blooms turn into berries, but the birds eat them, and that's totally fine. The fig trees are just beginning to sprout the young leaves, and it's interesting that they start forming the fruit almost simultaneously with the leaves. I'm not very familiar with fig culture, but apparently this is how they grow. Lots of frostbite after this winter on fig trees. I'll have to do major pruning late fall, or maybe whenever it's time to prune them. In this part of the garden, because they have more sun, the irises are preparing to bloom. They have already formed the flower buds. And the jasmine that I planted last year, it's like a double pom-pom shaped blooms jasmine, also is grown quite nicely. It looks like it likes this spot. It's in the shade between this rhododendron bush and the other plant that I don't know, that also grows in a bush shape form. Here this plant used to bloom with very bright blue blooms, and it's right now finishing blooming. It's also one of the early bloomers. And here we have some daisies. Here I had an old tree removed because it was not doing well and it almost died out. It was like a big spruce pine tree, and you can see the branches are laying out around, but it needed to be done because it was dangerously leaning towards the fence. And the blueberries here are blooming now because now they have more sunlight, because they used to be in the shade covered up by this huge spruce pine tree. Maybe I'll plant some rosemary here. I'll just add some more garden soil and then plant some rosemary so it covers up this empty spot but doesn't grow too tall, to make sure the blueberries keep having sunshine all around. These are their blooms. Aren't they pretty? Let's go check out on another lilac bush. This one is called Beauty of Moscow, and it is also doing very well after the winter. Lilacs can be hardy plants. They just need a lot of cool weather and moisture to do well. I used to miss them when I lived in Southern California, and the only place to see them was in Descanso Gardens, and it was just really for a short period of time in the spring when they were blooming. It was too dry and hot for them out there. Lots of cleanup needed here. This is where I have irises growing and gladioluses. And look at this. We have first irises blooms just opened up. Here they are. Very nice veining on this particular variety. And more blooms opening up.